Uh, The first item on our agenda is to approve the agenda. I'd like to make a remark or two before we go ahead. At the very last minute, I realized that probably Bob and I are the only two people who have the governance document. And I'm not talking about the instructions on how to keep it up to date, but the most recent governance document itself, which we had from a meeting prior to the last meeting. Bob and I are probably the only two people who have an up-to-date copy, in particular because there's nothing attached to our last meeting minutes. So when we get down to that, I think Bob and I can offline do some updating. There's no major updates that need to be made. There's been some resolution approvals, but they have not been signed and posted on the website. And there are a couple of other items that can be briefly noted for the rest of the committee. But when we get down to that, I think we're not going to have a complete review line item by line item of the governing documents review document itself. So with that comment, are there any additions, comments, deletions that can be made to the agenda? Okay, if not, I'm going to take it as the agenda is approved. Minutes of the last meeting are the November 12, 2021 meeting. Those minutes have been previously distributed. Does anybody have any additions, deletions, clarifications, comments, and so on for that meeting? Okay, I'm going to take them as approved. Now the next item on the agenda. Okay, I see that Colette is with us. We just started, Colette. I don't think you missed anything of importance. The next item on the agenda is public comments. We have no public as such. However, I'm going to recognize that I see that Tom Stoss is on the meeting. Tom, we run a pretty, I'm going to call it informal meeting. If at any time you feel you want to ask a question or make a comment, feel free to do so. And if at the end of the meeting I remember, I will ask if there are other comments from the press in particular. But again, Tom, you're welcome to join us. Having no public comments that I'm aware of that I see, let's go to the unfinished business. Now, the first item on the unfinished business, and let me start getting through my stack of papers here. Confuse them first. First item is the what is referred to as the bylaws status. Josh, if you can bring that up. I know some of this may have come to you late. This is the Excel spreadsheet that I'm referring to.
I don't think I got an Excel spreadsheet in that email. Let me double check.
Well, I could have missed it. I'm sorry.
Yep, just Word docs.
All right. Unfortunately, hopefully the committee members have it available. The bylaws review status is our Excel spreadsheet, which I have modified or updated really since our last consideration of the content. It's now divided into three separate sections. First section is the bylaws sections that came to us from the bylaws work group. That's the board appointed work group to review the bylaws and give to us sections that the work group wanted us to consider for possible revision. That's the bulk of what's on the status. The next part of that are three items that we have considered that did not come from the work group. One of them came from the executive council. That's the committee chairs. Second one came from a member of the association, and the third one actually did come from me regarding a petition process in the bylaws. The third category is one that's been added from the last meeting, and that's the 3 charging documents that came from the board. Now, again, it's unfortunate that not everybody that's watching perhaps is going to see this. The status that is shown is in red means that we have more work to do. Whatever may be involved with the topic of the bylaws that are indicated. The one of the items on there pertains to the art committee. I'll call it the art committee provision in 513H of the bylaws, where we have sought input from our council to assist in that, and we have not received any. That status on that, if you're looking at your spreadsheet, status on that has changed to the extent that this morning I did send him a message by way of email asking, telling him where we stood in our process, and asking if he had any comments to forward to us for us to be considering. So that document simply represents the status where we are with each of the bylaws provisions that we've been considering. Now, note that there are a number of entries that show prepare final proposal. What that means is that the bylaws work group, when it reviewed this a month or so ago, had no comments to make. It's up to us now to prepare a final proposal, and how we do that is one of the agenda items further on in the meeting. I think that's the only thing I want to say about the status at this time. We need to start work on preparing proposals, and really the very first one is at the top of that, which deals with the eligibility to vote, or to clarify voter eligibility, is at a point where we need to begin to finalize both the format, the content, and the format, and then we can discuss that. We can discuss that as we get to it. Okay, I think that's as much as I want to talk about the actual status at this time. We're going to be talking about specific items as we go. Any comments on the status, the format, the information?
Jim, may I ask a question?
Sure.
I have the, whether it's a Word document or a spreadsheet, I have it in front of me. I'm just curious where the entries are prepare final proposal. Is there an underlying document for us to look at, or is this just go back to the bylaws and see what it says?
No, I did not ask Josh to have this available. You should have a document that's entitled Bylaws Summary. And let me see if I can get my copy out handy here. Okay. This is not including the cover sheet, it's a 15-page, I think it's 15 pages. And each of those items on the spreadsheet, with the exception of the most recent board charging documents, the cause, the owner of record, and the eligible to vote, with the exception of those 3, each of the items on the spreadsheet have a sheet within the document. It's called Bylaws Summary, and it's dated September 17th of 2021.
Okay, that predates my joining the committee either as an associate member or as a full-fledged member, so I never received that.
Okay, well, I will get you a copy. It's going to be kind of hard for me to do it using the computer I'm on now, right now.
If it's easier for you, I can, after the meeting or a couple of days, I can contact you and just run over and pick it up if there's a hard copy. You want?
I have a hard copy, and I can also transmit it as an email attachment.
Whichever you want to do is fine. I just didn't have the underlying document. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
When we when we consider the item on the agenda that has to do with the topic eligible to vote, that is a modification of one of the sheets that's in the existing in that September 17th document. So
Okay.
that'll give you an indication of how each of the items on the spreadsheet have been considered, or the information that it is in that September 17th document. Obviously, it's different information, different somewhat format in each case, and that's one of the things we're going to have to consider as we go along.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, I am looking here. Okay, where we are now, I think, is at the search committee talking points for the next board meeting. Colette, I think you're muted. Are we still go for that to be a topic on the meeting? I'm not sure she is. She's hearing. Yes. All right. Let's continue on here. What Josh has put up here is what has been submitted through Colette to be a talking point for a discussion item on the board meeting for December. The work group, the bylaws work group, and I didn't talk about this in the status, but the bylaws work group decided to refer the search committee status as well as the participation of associate members in the association, the participation of associate members as discussion items at board meetings, with the search committee status to be a discussion item, and what I believe is a scheduled December 11th meeting, and the discussion of participation and the extent of participation of associate members of the association in association fairs would be tentatively a January discussion item. What is on the screen now, and which was distributed with the materials, is what went to Colette to be included in the board member package for the meeting. The talking points regarding the search committee, and in particular, what does the board want or sense or want us to consider in the search committee status, the search committee going forward. In general, I think it can be accurately stated that the search committee has been an irregular kind of thing, and not in recent years, for one reason or another, has not been fully effective. And for that reason, what in the bylaws should be changed to either make the process more effective or to go to some other process. The item is on the agenda for us for any further comments with regard to what may be missed on here that could be brought forward. I expect to be there. The intention probably is, well, I will be there. The intention would be for the Robert's Rules of Order be suspended, that I could participate in the discussion. So what is before us here, is there something that's been omitted in there, or something that needs to have greater emphasis that may be in there, or any other comment that the committee members may have on what is going to go before the board before they get into the meeting? Do you have any comments in preparation for the meeting? And that's
Jim,
basically what I'm asking.
Jim,
Yeah.
can you hear me
Go ahead.
now? Jim,
I can, I'm sure who we're, okay, go ahead.
you can hear me now?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. Just wanted to clear that up first. We are a go for this discussion topic on the 11th, to answer that question. And the only comment that I have about this document is a fourth option. I think one of the things that has made the search committee difficult is that it is appointed newly each year. And if it were a standing committee that engaged in, communication efforts or other efforts in support of the election throughout the year, that we may get better participation. So that could be a fourth option. Of course, the duties of the search committee would have to be somewhat.
Okay, that there was some consideration given to that a couple of years ago, certainly pre-pandemic, and it's basically 2 years now. That would be called pre-pandemic. And the only, and I don't remember if it ever got to consideration by this committee. And it involved some recommendations, if I remember correctly, from a committee that was appointed, I believe, a full membership of the committee, and submitted its report, and they had some recommendations in it. And again, this could go back 3 to even 4 years ago. And consideration, and I don't remember whether it was consideration that I was drafting or not, was given to possibly being able to do what you're suggesting in an amendment to the search committee resolution M09, to create a committee that was not appointed every year, and some other possible potential committee changes as well that could be thought of as being able to be done in a resolution. But I agree that that's a point that can be made in discussion. A potential way of maintaining a continuous performance of the committee, that rather than one that is appointed more or less February 1st and then goes out of business more or less the middle of June. One that stays in place for a period of time, with perhaps rotating membership, and a staggered membership, maybe.
Kind of like the way the other committees operate, I think. The board charged the GM with creating content in the form of the Ocean Pines Academy as a tool to use to educate people and solicit interest in volunteerism in general, and certainly volunteerism for running for the board. So there are some things in place. I think the greater use of electronic communications and social media communications, I think the board may be open to considering changing the bylaws language to make it not an appointment that occurs every year, but more of a standing committee, and also changing the resolution charge for that committee, which would be a simpler matter, obviously. So just throwing that out there. I don't know if you want to, I'll certainly bring it up in the discussion on the 11th if you would like.
I could bring it. Probably serious consideration would probably require a bylaws, a revision to the bylaws,
right,
regarding the appointment of the committee. That would be the best approach if that approach was taken, to go to a standing type of committee.
Yeah.
I bringing up in a discussion, I think, would be the way to do it.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, any committee member comments on what the board members will see in advance of the meeting and of the discussion? Okay, if not, we'll continue on to the next item on the agenda. And let me make sure I don't get too confused here. Okay, the next item is the eligible to vote item. And I need to make sure I can get that out in front of me myself. Okay, Josh has it up there on the screen, and I'll use that while I manage to confuse myself with my papers here already. This, to kind of refer back to comment from Steve, this is actually a rewrite or drafting of what is in that September the 17th document, the bylaws summary as it was reviewed by the work group. Now, it's doesn't bear a whole lot of resemblance to what's in that September 17th document, but it can be representative to a degree of each of the section line items in that Excel spreadsheet. What I have done is put it in a format that can be considered, and I'm not proposing this format. I'm just saying it. I tried a kind of a first approach to how this would go to the board of directors for their consideration. So it starts with an explanation of the proposal, and the first line or so, first paragraph explains that its intent is to clarify the language eligible to vote, and to remove the consideration of the 35-day proposed or provision that's in 301C. And then the next three items refer to related changes or revisions to the bylaws that would also be offered for consideration at the same time as the basic revision being to the 502A. And it goes on, goes on to the proposed revisions, starting with 502A, which is the basic one. And the change made there, proposed change made there is the one that I believe Steve, I think I incorporated as is the recommendation or suggestion that Steve made coming out of our last meeting. So are there any comments on, let's stick with the proposed revisions. Let's stick with the proposal of 5.02A, and in particular, where you have the markup in there, as to what's proposed to be changed. Any comments on that? Any discussion of that?
Well, if I may, my recollection from last month's meeting was that Colette raised the issue of the date. I think when I originally wrote it, I had included a June 1 date on the theory that the secretary would have a leeway to get everything in order. Colette, I thought, made an excellent point that the burden rests on the candidate, and therefore we should go to a different date. And I just, Colette, I believe that should be May 15th, not Mary 15th. Is that the date you want? Is that sufficient?
Yeah, I think that date makes sense. That's what was in there before.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that the board has kicked around informally some other ideas about eligibility that would also include some changes to that 502A. But I think what you've written here addresses the timing issue effectively. And so the board is likely to offer some suggestions back to either your committee. They're interested in fast tracking these bylaws changes so that we can get them in front of our council to review and, you know, make whatever adjustments they feel are needed from a legal standpoint and a protection of the association standpoint, and get something ready to send out to the membership with the ballots this spring. So, so I think as far as this goes, you've addressed that issue, but I think the board is, somebody, one of you guys sent some document links to eligibility requirements. Okay, yes,
Right.
and some of those things are the kind of things the board is actually talking about also. So I don't know what your committee intends to do with that. Is that going to be part of today's discussion, or is that a discussion for another day?
I think it's going to have to be a discussion for another day, except I want to make sure I understand what these last comments are. I believe you're referring to the material that Keith sent out. And that the 3 charging documents that we've received, one is the what we're talking about right now.
Right.
The second is, and it's a narrow subject of being
Exactly.
eligible, what eligible to vote really means, I think, as far as a candidate for the board is concerned. The other 2 are the issue of cause and forgot which one was which.
Owner of record.
Owner of
Owner
record.
of record. Yeah, owner of record. I understand. I agree. I think what these last comments, Colette, pertain to who can be a board member. What
Yeah.
what are the qualifications of a board member, for lack of a better term? None of the 3 charging documents really cover that.
Right, and that's a charging document yet to come, I believe. We just had
Okay.
some discussion this morning about it, and I agreed to kind of send this on to you guys, and I didn't have time between that meeting and this meeting.
Okay,
to-
well, as I said, that I think that's a separate subject, and you're going to be coming in with it. Okay, so we obviously will have to be considering that in a future meeting.
Can I? I'm sorry, Jim. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I first of all I think what Keith sent us is really a good piece to work from. I mean, both his summary and the various links that he provided are very helpful. The only thing I would say is, in light of Colette's comment about the interest of the board to move expeditiously on these matters, beyond what the charging documents that we've received, and I just quickly scanned what Keith gave us. I mean, there's a lot to chew on in there, whether it's for us or the board or both bodies or however ultimately that's decided. But it would take a lot of work. I'm not objecting to that, but I mean, I don't know that you could probably set a whole meeting aside just to cover the summary of themes that Keith provided to us. I mean, there's some real thorny issues in there that I think need to be discussed.
Yeah, okay, I agree completely. Colette, we're in December now.
Yeah.
And when you look, time moving pretty fast, as a matter of fact. And when we talk about going to a referendum, in particular going to a referendum that's done in conjunction with the annual meeting or the vote for directors, we're now not much more than 6 months out from the time in which the materials must be ready to go out to the membership. Maybe 7 months is closer.
Mhm.
We're going to have to consider. I think we're going to be faced with considering priorities as to what the board expects us to come to them with proposals. I'm
Okay.
not saying we are at that right now today, but we could very well be in the very near future. In
Right.
particular, with Steve's comment, we're not talking about something in that subject in particular. We're not talking about something that can be an agenda item among many other items or some other items in a meeting. It's an agenda item for one meeting, maybe even more than one meeting.
Mhm.
So I would,
Good.
I don't know that we're at the point yet, but we may be approaching a point when the priorities need to be set. Are there
Yeah.
certain revisions or proposed revisions, amendments to the bylaws that the board wants expedited, for lack of a better term?
Okay, let me bring that question to the board. And I can certainly have an answer and any charging documents ready for you for your January meeting.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
Can I just make one request? If we get a charging document on that subject matter, if I could, it would, Jim, if we can get that in advance of the January board meeting, so sufficient time, if we want to go through Keith's list of resources, we would all be better informed as to how to discuss that matter at that time. So again, understanding there are time limitations on if this is something that's going to have a high priority, speed would be important to get it out to all of us.
yeah,
Okay,
that's
well,
understood, and I will certainly make sure that happens.
Okay.
Jim, I would just like to offer, me personally, I know there for a while we were doing extra meetings because we had the backlog of issues to discuss. I'm just going to throw out there, I would be willing to participate in an extra meeting if necessary. If we've got more things to talk about than we've got monthlies coming up. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, an agenda item is to set our next meeting, so we can cover at least our next meeting before this meeting concludes. Okay, if we can now, let's go back to the specific issue of the eligible to vote proposal. And I see the typo of Mary instead of May. Steve, I got one concern. Does the language that's there, notwithstanding the provision, I'm not sure where the chimes are coming from. Hopefully it's not me.
Apologize.
Okay. Steve, the notwithstanding language in 301C, we express not only the payment of the annual charge and interest with that 35-day qualifier, we also express that there cannot be a suspension of the vote by the board of directors, which is a separate qualifying provision. Does that notwithstanding language, can that potentially be used to say, well, doesn't make any difference if your vote's been suspended by the board of directors? It has, but I've paid my assessments.
Bear with me just 1 second. I confess I did not give that very much thought, only because I was operating from what I read to be the charging document, which was to address the conflict between the two provisions, which I focused on as being the date or the time break in between. It was, notwithstanding provision 301C. Well, we don't change anything in 301C by this language. At least that's the way I intended it to be. So while I didn't pick up that last sentence that begins, the voting rights of a member may also be suspended during any period, and I would defer at some point when this is given to council to review, but by including provision notwithstanding the provision of 301C, we don't change anything in 301C. So therefore, if the board could act under 301C to suspend the right to vote, they would still have that provision. I don't have it in front of me, but 502A, I'm sorry, yeah, 502A does not change that in any way. So the way I would read it would be, we don't make any change at all to 301C. The board's power under 301C stays the same. I
Okay,
don't know if that answers your question.
okay, what would be, this would go through the council, all of our changes are gonna go through the council. So let's continue with that phrase, with that language, and have it reviewed by the council along with all other provisions. That's fine with me. Anyone else have any comments?
I
Go ahead.
agree. I agree. I like Steve's language here, and I'm looking at 301C, and I also agree with with his characterization of that. So I support this.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment?
Well, Jim, I would just say if it's something that can be done as to your question as to format, it might be worthwhile just to include a footnote or some other method of calling council's attention to the question you just raised, just to make sure that the second provision in 301C is not affected by what we've done. But I don't, I'm not insisting on it, but I think it's a good point just to raise, to make sure council doesn't just pass over. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I'll make a note of that. The remainder of the document, if I'm going to refer to it that way, shows the specific proposed revisions that go along with, that are related perhaps to one degree or another to the basic purpose in 502A. The section 1.11, that's in the definitions, and it provides a definition of eligible to vote. And then there it does specifically call out the voter suspension. But the reason for that definition primarily at this point is that if you look through the bylaws, and I knew the number at one point in time, there are maybe 10 to 15 references to using the term eligible to vote. You have to be eligible to vote to be a committee member. You have to be eligible to vote to count as a quorum at a members meeting, like the annual meeting. You have to be eligible to vote for your signature on a petition to be accepted, and some others in there. Again, I don't remember the exact name, but a number, I'm sorry. But the reason for that addition of a definition is because the term is used frequently within the bylaws, and in that context, it was thought to be reasonable to define the term so that it's known what that term means. The next two, the first sentence of 303C and the second sentence of 305, simply change the wording from eligibility to vote to eligible to vote to maintain a consistent reference throughout the bylaws. Those are the two places where the term was eligibility to vote was used as opposed to eligible to vote. So there's very minor change to each of those provisions to make them read eligible to vote as opposed to eligibility to vote. And then the final one is again, these are simply related to a degree to the 502A primary reason for the revision. And that's where in the petition signing that you have to be eligible to vote for your signature to count. That's my wording. It's actually used in two different places. I think the second and fourth sentence both say essentially the same thing about eligible to vote. So it's proposed that one of those sentences be removed. That's one that Keith suggested along with our consideration of this subject. Okay, the question here before us is, are we satisfied with this as our proposal to go to the board? Now, a separate comment or part of that is the format of what goes to the board, but that comes up later on here in the in our agenda. At that point, a consideration would be, would this be an acceptable format of how these items go to the board? And we can discuss that at that point in time. What's before us here is, do we have what we want to go to the board presented in proposal form? The way is it the proposed revisions, are they what we want to have? That's not disregarding, but that's separate from the format of the explanation of the proposal. And then the listing of the proposals, that's separate from format. All we're talking about now is, are we satisfied with proposed revisions in that document?
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
So on section 1.11, eligible to vote, the orange text,
Yeah.
it ends with 5.13 Charlie. I think that's supposed to be 5.13 Echo. I'm looking at the bylaws, and the Echo paragraph is the one that says board may suspend the right of a member, blah, 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 blah.
Okay. Well, that's
Charlie is about selling, mortgaging, or encumbering association property.
okay. That's another typo you can chalk up to me. I have corrected it on my copy.
5.13. Keep going, Josh. Okay, so stop right there. So Charlie, yeah, so Echo, the board may suspend the right of a member to vote. I think it's supposed to be Echo.
Okay. No, I got two typos. May instead of Mary, and 513 Echo.
And if I can, and I admit I don't have the bylaws in front of me, but I note from the charging document that we received, or I printed off, I guess, Article 3, Section 303 deals with proxies as I'm looking at it, unless I'm looking at the wrong. And I don't see a 303C.
Okay. Let me get my bylaws out here.
I could be looking in the wrong place, so.
Yeah, there are three paragraphs, A, B, and C.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have the
On
second
the
page.
next page.
I didn't have the second page.
Okay.
And then if we could just speak about C a little bit, I just want to bring up that one of the issues that came up in the litigation that we're currently awaiting a ruling on was an issue of the identity of the candidate applicant, that there was confusion about the identity of that individual. And I wonder if we might consider including under C that the secretary shall affirm the identity of the member and confirm that the member is eligible to vote. Because we had a situation of, is this a junior or is it a different middle name? We didn't have the legal name of the applicant on that candidate verification form, and there was no direction given as to affirming that the person whose name is on the application is the person whose name is on the ownership record.
Okay, Colette, I'm a little confused here. What provision are what bylaws?
I'm talking about, what is this, 503, 3.01C, Charlie, where it says currently the secretary shall ensure the member's eligibility to vote. You've changed that language. The secretary shall confirm that the member is eligible to vote, ... But I think also in that paragraph, one might consider charging the secretary with affirming the identity of the applicant
But isn't that just one of many things that the secretary would be doing?
Right.
And if so, is that the only thing we would list?
Right now, there's no requirement that the candidate verification form, I suppose, could be changed. And it could be taken care of in that way. And so if you agree with that, then this language is fine. And we can just make changes to the candidate verification form to.
And is there a spot on the actual application that says for them to list their legal given name?
No, so we
So
can
add
change
that into it, because that becomes a responsibility of the applicant, who wants to be considered a candidate, to let everyone know that instead of going by Tom, I go by Thomas, in the formal filings and things like that,
Right, and maybe
or
even,
if you use your middle name as your common name, but legally it's, different, that should be on them initially to show given name or however you word it, official legal name and what you want to be called,
Including junior or first,
Right.
second, third, et cetera.
right, exactly. And maybe even ask for an ID to be attached to the
Correct.
form. So, okay, so I withdraw my comment here, so we can address it in another way.
Okay, on the eligible to vote topic on our agenda, do we have anything further to comment, discuss on that item? Because if not, we have two typographical changes. And I'm talking about the proposed revisions themselves, not the text above it.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm
All right,
good.
we'll consider that now at some point in time, we need to formally vote on these changes. What I will do is reflect on our status that we have agreed to in whatever identification I use, today's date, for example, that we have agreed to this as our proposed revisions for this particular bylaws topic, because it covers more than one section. That the status will be changed to reflect that this is our consensus pending our final approval of something that goes to the board of directors. All right, let's move on to the next item. That's the owner of record status. We haven't, our last meeting, I guess I could get out the minutes, but we decided that we were going to wait for the current litigation for a decision of the trial court to come down.
Yeah, I think what we've decided to do, or we're kicking around as a board, is that this issue be turned over to council to give us a recommendation, because there's case law that needs to be considered and other business and professional code issues. And so, I'm thinking the outcome of this litigation notwithstanding, the association has the authority to define owner of record. And so I think what we're thinking is, to keep ourselves out of trouble, let's just send that to the lawyer to figure out and do the research on. So I think you guys are off the hook on that.
Okay, let's leave it at that and continue on.
Okay.
Hang on.
You guys brought up some excellent arguments last month or in the previous meeting as to why it would be a good idea to just send it to our lawyers.
Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is the charging document for cause. And we kind of kick that back to the board also.
Yeah, and I think where the board is at this point is, we need to socialize this internally if we're going to address this as a resolution issue of, going back to having a resolution of ethics and conduct that doesn't have any remedy or actions, but just is a reference document that sets a standard for the board. And so I think you guys are off the hook on that one right now, too.
Colette, just to let you know, I did a little bit of Googling. Never a good idea, but I did it anyway. There is a Maryland Homeowners Association.org link, which has a provision on its website for information sources. Some of which is dated. I believe this is sort of an all-volunteer group, so I'm not sure how updated it is. The other thing I would tell you is there's also an HOA-USA.com website, which I believe is based down in North Carolina, which also may have some information relating to ethics, conflict of interest, those sort of questions. I did not go far into either website to go look because I wasn't sure what we're going to do, and I have no problem letting the board deal with this for sure, but that might be two possible sources to look at.
Yeah, thank you. And I had put a couple of sources on that charging document that in my scholarly Googling research also was able to find.
Okay.
So thanks, Steve.
Sure.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is to discuss the format of how we send recommendations to the board. And earlier in our discussion and as well as I think in the email that include the various materials, I said that what I did with that eligible to vote was put it in a format that could be at least considered as to how we would, is what it would look like when we send something such as the eligible to vote topic to the board of directors for review, as with regard to for the board to propose that to be the an amendment to the bylaws. What I simply did was start off with an explanation of the proposal or of the proposed section changes. And that's really all it was done. It was to simply just say, here's what we propose and list the proposals as indicated on that document. What I did was add that explanation of what we're about, what this proposal is all about. And what we need to do, I think, is begin to decide either now or pretty soon, and we can literally start with this particular proposal that we have here. Is decide what kind of format, how we need to format the information on these proposals as it goes to the board. I want to open that up for discussion. This was my first. I'm going to describe it as my contribution. Now, my contribution is only that. Opening it up for a discussion from one and all. Hey guys, give me some help here.
Okay, can I ask a question about this? I frankly, Jim, I have no problem with the format. I think the format's fine. My question goes to how this, once it's advanced to the board, how it becomes linked to whatever action the board takes. And let me, if I may, backtrack just a little bit. Way back when, my earlier careers, I worked on Capitol Hill. There's a lot of time spent creating like what's called legislative history. And I see this as essentially something akin to that, which means in part that this becomes something that in the event one goes to court, it could become part of the documentation either in support of or in opposition to a particular lawsuit. So my only question, and I'm not trying to over lawyer this in any way, but my only question really comes down to what our committee presents to the board. How is that then tied to the permanent and official, for lack of a better term, records of the board's decisions?
Okay, let me try to give you my answer, and Colette, you may have a different or more elaborate answer to that. What we send to the board will have to be an official record, at least in the context of, I believe it would have to appear in the materials that the board gets for its meetings in which it considers these proposals. Whether or not that appears in the minutes of a meeting is perhaps another question. I can't. A proposal is considered at a board meeting. That proposal should be in the meeting materials that the board receives and is currently published on the association website. When the board considers an item such as one we have before us as an example, when the board considers that, would that then appear in the minutes? I can't answer that. But what will go to the proposals, if the board wishes to propose them as an amendment or propose this one, let's just stick with one, propose this one as an amendment to the bylaws, that has to go to the membership in a referendum. And before it goes to a membership referendum, there has to be a meeting it's not a membership meeting, but it's I'm not sure the bylaws term, but it's a public meeting, has to be held for membership to be able to discuss this proposal. That there is a opportunity for membership comment at a meeting such as that is a part of the bylaws. And again, I don't want to overcommit or discuss the records of such a meeting, but they are what they're going to be. But then to the membership in a referendum, there has to be not only the proposal, but there has to be some background information as to why it's being proposed and the board position on why it should be accepted. There are ample opportunities for, let's just take this eligible to vote proposal that we've been talking about as the example. There are multiple opportunities for that to be publicly, or for that to be published, using a broad definition of published. How formal that becomes as a part of the record, I'm hesitant to try to say yes it is, no it isn't, that sort of thing. But that's my best answer. Colette, would you care to?
Yeah, I would agree
on that?
I would agree.
Something happened to Colette's.
Yeah, she froze up.
Yeah, screen.
Well, if I can, I don't, Jim, I don't have any problem with your explanation. I think that's fine. The only thing I would say is if you're, and I think maybe this is just a word of warning, nothing more. But if the board and the association, more importantly, finds itself in any sort of legal dispute where they go to discovery, a document like this probably would be found in the records as to the part of the bylaws that are in controversy. And we at least should be aware of that, if nothing else, I guess is the way I
Yeah,
would say.
well, I agree.
Okay.
Josh, you still with us? I can't, I'm looking down. Yeah. I don't know if,
Yes.
I guess Colette has disappeared completely.
Yeah, what do you need, Jim?
Well, we've lost Colette. She froze up on
Yeah,
us.
I'm guessing connectivity issues.
Okay. Okay, well, back to format. We going back to again to the
Here,
status.
she's coming back in, Jim.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I somehow got kicked offline.
Okay.
And now I switched devices. I went on my iPad, so this is less
Okay,
ideal. But
we're
let
back to
me
you for
see.
comment.
Yeah, so I agree with what you said. Any written documents that you send to us for consideration that we discuss in a board meeting. So for example, this upcoming discussion topic, your talking points will be attached to my discussion topic form and will become part of the materials that the board reviews. And so it becomes part of what we call the board packet. And that is preserved in the Ocean Pines records. If a public meeting, as you referred to, Jim, occurs, as will be required for any changes to the bylaws, that meeting will be recorded and that will remain in the video archives for some period of time. We haven't determined yet with council how far back we're going. I don't think. Josh, do you have any other information on that? Any advice we got on how far back we retain video records?
Generally 5 years.
Okay, so for 5 years of the video record at this point will be maintained. So does that answer your question?
Steve, that would be for
Steve.
you.
Yes, and Colette, we sort of lost you for a little bit. I did make the observation that, and I think it was just advisory more than anything else. As I said, I have no problem with the format at all. My concern was whether or not this document, the format that Jim put together, would in fact be part of some sort of permanent record, which could be found through a process of discovery were the association to be sued and on this particular issue or any other issue. And your explanation seems to be, yes, it could be, which is fine.
Yes. Yes.
I'm just saying, just advisory more than anything else. I have no problem with the format. I think what's done here is more than adequate. I just think we ought to be aware of how far and how deep it goes. And that's all I was trying to get.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, well, using this as at least our starting format, what we need to start doing now is where we have the green on our status report or status sheet, we need to start putting those sheets, each of those, as I indicated earlier, each of those where we have green on that status sheet are ready for us to put into a format such as what we've just discussed. We need to start being prepared for that. I'm not, I don't know that we need to today to try to figure out the who part of that, not because I'd like to encourage, I'd like to encourage each of us to be able to participate in that. There are, to a degree, there may be more actual participation in what's in the document at the present time by one person or more so than another. But I'm going to ask that we each give some consideration between now and the next meeting as to being able to pick up and put what's in the September 17th document into an actual proposal format. I was not prepared today for us to go step by step through that. But I think we need to be able to do that in our next meeting. There are one or two that I think I have to personally volunteer for, because I in particular, the maximum number of votes issue is one that I've personally been involved in, let's put it that way. But beyond that, if we would all look at these, I know Keith, you're intimately involved in the referendum voting proposal, so that's one I would like to volunteer you for that anyway. But if we would all look at that and see if there are some that we'd like to take on ourselves. And as a matter of fact, between now, over the next week or so, let's exchange some not suggestions, but if we can exchange ideas that we would like to take one or more of these on ourselves, let's do that amongst us. I think we can do that offline without jeopardizing open meetings and that sort of thing. And so we're prepared somewhat for our next meeting to actually assign ourselves those I'm going to refer to them as section topics, because we gathered more than one section together in some places, to write those proposals that are indicated in green on the status sheet. Now, the one that deals with the eligible to vote, both as on the very top item on the status sheet, and the one that's on the charging document section, that was going to go green with what we got. At any rate, anybody have any comments on that suggestion?
Yeah, Jim, again, because I don't have the September document,
Understood.
Which I'll get from you. I have no problem with that at all. I would, I'm not sure I could provide the institutional knowledge that you've done, but in terms of trying to understand what the issue is and come up with some initial draft, I have no problem in taking whoever wants. I'll take whatever you guys assign to me. That's fine.
Okay, well, it's clearly understood that you're arrived on this project well into its effort, and we can go from there on that.
Yeah, Jim, I would say there's 10 greens on here and there's 5 of us. So if we each just take 2, and I'm with Steve, I'll take whatever 2, and the referendum one, I'm happy to take that one. I'll take the next one if you want. But it seems to me we could just quickly divide them up now, and so that we can individually take a look at those items, and then by the next meeting say, I'm comfortable with these, or I'm not too sure about this one, and then maybe at the next meeting we rearrange them or swap a little bit. But I recommend we just divide up 2 by 2 now, and of course this is with the understanding that you would probably re-forward that draft that we marked up that's got all the scribbles on it when we first did these discussions, because I think that was a while back that we did that. If you send that back out, and that way we have something to look at and consider and think about prior to the next meeting, and either come forward with recommendations or come forward with I need more information about this because I'm not really sure what to do with this. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah. Question. Keith, you said there were 10. There are 2 of them that are marked no proposal will be submitted. So there's really only 8.
8, yeah.
So yeah, I agree. Why don't we just light them up and do whatever we want to do? We're doing nothing but taking a red line and marking it.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Hang on just a second here.
You assign them, Jim, and we'll take them.
Let's just do it.
Yeah.
All right, hang on. Let me, Steve, with apologies, I know you don't have the September 17th document. The first one is the eligible to vote. And again, we've covered that. Hang on a second. Let me turn some pages here.
Well, there's two. There's one that says clarify voting eligibility, and the one below that says to provide increased certainty as to who is eligible to vote or sign petitions. Was that covered in that?
Yeah, I'm not sure the eligible to vote part, how that applies there. Might be well to open the bylaws.
Steve, I just forwarded you Jim's email where he had those as attachments.
Okay.
So when you get that email, open it up and it's the Excel file.
Is that the same document we were working from before?
Yeah, it's one that looks like it's split in 2 pages.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, Roger.
Right. So there's the first one, as I see it, is the reference to 301C and 301D, and then the next one right below it is 304 and 407A.
Okay, is what you have a 2-page Excel document? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's an Excel document, but at the very top in bold, it says the following sections for review and proposal are from the bylaws work group. And
That's it.
It's broken into 3 categories, the last 2 of which are on what amounts to my second page.
Correct.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
So the first green is the 3.04 and 4.07, which I think is the one Jim was saying
Right.
that he was interested in. Is that right, Jim?
Actually, it's the next one down.
Next one down. Okay.
Let me pencil in that I'll take that one.
Which one are you taking, Jim?
It's 4.03, 4.07C2, and 4.07C3.
Okay.
To clarify the meaning of maximum number of votes. That has to do with petitions.
Okay, so what about the one above that?
All right, let me make sure I understand what we're talking about on that.
The 3.04 and 4.07A.
Something's not adding up right here. Hang on a second. What is being listed here doesn't really match something for some reason. Hang on a second. Yeah, there's another typographical error here. Hang on a second. 4.3.
The purpose of the proposal says to provide increased certainty as to who is eligible to vote or sign petitions. That helps at all.
Hang on a second, guys. There's a page that's missing for some reason in what I'm looking at. I'm going to have to go back and figure out again the copy that I have, whether it's the right one or wrong one. I don't know why I may be confused here. Does not specifically have the 3.04 and 4.07A
Got mail.
in it, and I'll have to figure that out. But let's just skip over that for a minute. There's something isn't adding up right, because I've got 2-page ones, and that shouldn't be.
You want Josh to put it up on the screen, the one that you emailed out? That one is probably.
Yeah, if he has it, Josh, if you have that.
Are we talking that Excel file?
Yes.
We're
I
talking.
don't
No,
have
not,
that.
well, Josh, do you have the one that's dated September 17th? This is the multi-page, like 15-page document. I can't get to it on the computer I'm using right now.
Keith, do you have it? Can you
I have
email it to
it.
Josh?
Want me to forward it to somebody?
So
Yeah,
the Excel sheet you sent out is November 30th, 2021.
no, I don't
That's
have
the
anything
current,
that long.
that's the current status. Yeah, it's about 2 pages. It is 2 pages.
Right.
Excel.
And that's the one I was just working for.
It's called the lawsuit summary document. Or bylaws, rather, summary document.
Are we still talking about the spreadsheet?
Yes.
You're looking,
Yeah, I don't have that, but if someone could forward it, I can put it up quickly.
you want the 17-page document?
Or the November 30th. Would it,
Okay. The 3.04 and 4.07A on the spreadsheet do not show up in the copy that I've got in my hand, and I've got a blank page in it of that September 17th. That's got all of the discussions of the sections in it. What that has to do with is to make sure what is meant by eligible to vote in the signing of a petition, what eligible to vote means with regard to signing a petition. And I have a feeling that what's on that sheet has been affected by the proposal that we have in the 502A 301C. And in fact, in it not necessarily in the 502A 502A revision, the notwithstanding addition to that section. The concern, I believe, again, was the 35-day provision in 301C, and the way the two sections are worded, the 3.04 and the 4.07A simply refer to eligible to vote. Well, we've already defined that, or we are defining that with the addition of the section 1.11. It's entirely possible that line item on the status sheet is covered by the section 1.11 definition of eligible to vote. Because if you read 407, well, let me read 3. What is there? 3.04. It simply says voting for directors on referendum of issues shall be done by ballots cast by members eligible to vote. Well, the concern was the eligible to vote may not expressly include. I think the concern was the eligible to vote in the 35-day provision, but I'd have to go back and look at that.
Jim, in your eligible to vote document that we just went through, in your explanation of proposal, there is a reference to 407A, both in the second paragraph and then where the paragraphs are lettered down in paragraph C, the proposed revision of 407A. And then, of course, there is the red line version on the second page to revise the second sentence of 407A. There is not, however, any reference to 304. Now, I don't, again, everything you said may well be accurate, but 304, for whatever reason, is not covered in what we just discussed earlier.
Simply adding 304 to the section reference in the the one that we've already covered, but probably covered what's on that spreadsheet.
I just forwarded that 17-page document to Josh.
Got it. Thank you.
And 304, 304
Item by
just
item.
has, 304 just has the term eligible to vote in it. So I think, Jim, you're right. It's just rolled all up into those areas of the bylaws that use that term eligible to vote.
That's what, that appears to be, to me, to be what's happened here.
Yeah.
So would you have to change the eligible to vote document that we just considered just to include a reference to 304?
I don't, the simple explanation behind 1.11 would suffice, is just to cover the use of the term throughout the document.
Okay. Well,
But I think,
Yeah, I agree with that. Based on if 1.11 gets included, then it doesn't look to me like 3.04 needs to be changed.
okay.
okay, this is the original, not original, it's the, what I'll call the final version that went to the bylaws work group. And since then, we've completely revised this. But the heading with the 301C, the 301D comes out of there because there is no 301D, but then the 304 and the 407A, that continues to be there. And that changing that document that we've had before to include 407A and whatever it is, 304 would take care of that item. That's the second item on the spreadsheet.
Okay, so we're down from 8 to 7.
Yeah, we can delete that one, and I'll have to straighten that out in the status.
Okay.
All right, we're down to the proposal to add member meetings notice provisions from the charter. That should be on what page 3? Is that right? Yes, I think it is. The background to this one, I don't know, Josh, if you can go ahead about 2 pages from where you are now. I don't know, have we lost Josh?
No, I'm trying
Scrolling.
to find it here.
Oh, okay, it would be page 3 of the document that you're in now. Right now you're in, I think, page 1. You would want to go to page 3.
I think my pages are different than yours.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hold on a second.
Jim, I'll just offer to take 404 Charlie and then the next one down, 408 Charlie.
Okay, we'll put you down for those two. What do we got up here now? Well, you still got the same thing. Yeah, that 408 Charlie, I think that's the one where you had that extended discussion of referendum approvals. Okay, the next 2 items are red, and that's going to be coming up for the discussion. All right, I think I would probably better volunteer for 510. That has to do with the clarifying informal action. Okay, the next one is 5.11.
If no one else takes it, I'll take it.
For whatever reason, it seems kind of blank there.
I'm good at blank.
Hang on a second. Let me turn to my page here.
I think we said to remove all privileges from the board. Wasn't that the decision?
Yeah.
Probably,
It just made it easy.
There's probably people who want to do that. I'll understand that. Okay. The provision shown there, the way it reads now is a list of club, I'm going to call them club memberships that are available for the members of the board of directors, and the proposal is to delete the itemization of the various club memberships that are available and just simply make available family membership to any amenity in the association. That's I think, a pretty uncontroversial item. And the description is to avoid having the reason for doing that is to avoid making a change whenever there is some kind of a change to the amenities. For example, pickleball has been added as an available amenity since the 2008 version of the bylaws were approved. And rather than add pickleball to the list of amenities, it says it just been changed to any of the amenities. Anybody want to take a try at that?
Yeah, I mean, if no one else wants it, I'll take it. That's fine.
I'm thinking of something else here. Steve, there's one thing that you may not have that you also should have, and that's the reason why the provision, the sections that we're considering, and particularly the sections that are in this September 17th document, the reasons why we're considering them is in a document that this committee received from the board. I'm sorry, not the board, the bylaws work group. I'll make sure that I forward that to you.
Okay.
It does have a description in it as to why a particular provision is before us. And in this case, we've already kind of discussed that. The reason is to avoid having to change the bylaws every time there's some kind of change in amenities.
Okay.
All right. As I said earlier, I have sent an email as of this morning to our attorney, asking him if he has any input to make on the art committee circumstance. Steve, the reason for that particular item is that has been some concern, at least at the bylaws work group level, that provision 513H of the bylaws grants more authority over architecture review committee operations than is truly available to the board of directors. And we've asked the board has allowed us to communicate with the association attorney about that. And he and I had several months ago a Microsoft Teams meeting about it, and the discussion of what can be improved in that language to make it somewhat better with regard to authority and how the board, what the board can do with regard to art matters. And that I sent out a follow-up message this morning regarding any input that he may have for us. On the next page.
Well, Jim, if I just to be clear, so 513H, dealing with the ARC authority, is something that you're working on with council. I mean,
That's correct.
So it's not part of the 8 that we need to assign.
That's right.
Okay, got it.
So in effect, it's assigned to me for me to come back to the committee with whatever council has to say about that provision. All right. The next item is how to determine how to identify source references in the bylaws. That groups together a number of provisions in the bylaws where reference is made to some source of information outside of the bylaws. I think that's an accurate statement. What we discussed is how to do that. Among other possibilities is to make reference to a specific document. There are currently in existence a financial policies manual, a financial procedures manual, but we decided against proposing to specifically refer to those. There's by one title or another, there are human resource documents that could be referenced, but we decided against a specific reference to a document, and there's one other situation I don't remember, but that deals with how to do that. Any volunteers for that particular item?
I'll take a crack. I mean, I got time.
Okay, some of that, that document I need to send to you that we received in the work group will have some description of it in it. And I can elaborate as may be necessary, or as much as I can.
Okay.
Last item would be to add a duty. Whoops. Well, I'm sorry. No proposal will be submitted. So that's not applicable to what we're trying to get done. Now we're down into the following proposals that have been received from outside the work group. One of them is that we're not going to make a proposal, and the other is has to do with the associate members and opportunities available to associate members. We're going to discuss that in a minute, so that can be left. That's a red, so it can be left the way it is anyway. I'm sorry, we're supposed to be looking at only the green part. The last one would be the insert references to a petition that has been certified as valid by the board. I
Can deal with that.
Josh, can you? Okay, you've got that there. Frankly, that's one that I brought to the committee for consideration. I certainly can do it unless somebody else wants to do it. All it does is make it more clear what some of the responsibilities are when a petition is submitted. And in particular, it deals with what the secretary has to do. It makes it more clear I think it makes more clear what the secretary has to do. I'll go ahead and.
I can take a shot at it if you want, Jim.
Okay, go ahead, Bob. That'd be fine.
Okay.
All right. Continuing down the status is the status of the first one, the owner of record, and the status of the third one, cause are going to be I'm going to say discontinued, however that's phrased. I'll keep it as a record, keep it there as a record of what has been before us, but one way or another. But then the other one, the 35-day provision, that and the number one top one are the same thing. So a reference, cross-reference, and complete for that item will be part of the next status as well. Okay, we've pretty well gone through it in our assignments. Let's we haven't discussed the next meeting.
What about the associate member options?
Okay, I'm sorry. Let's go back to that. That is the next item on the agenda. For sake of clarity, let's talk about that right now. Was an item in the materials for the meeting on that. If I can sort out my documents. Okay. Okay, Josh has it up on the screen right now. This item is specifically out of the September 17th proposal document as it went to the bylaws work group for their consideration. And again, at that meeting, in which the work group considered this package of proposals, it was decided that this would be an appropriate topic for a board discussion item. And a tentative agreement was reached then that this would be an item for discussion at the January board meeting. Now, whether it takes place in January or not, that may be subject to board priorities. But at any rate, this, as it is written, comes close to being sufficient for a talking point submittal to go to Colette for inclusion in the meeting materials of whatever meeting the discussion takes place. But I think I haven't read through it item by item, word for word, but it probably needs some form of editing, as was the case with the search committee document. That search committee document for meeting materials was basically an minor editing of the document that was in the September 17th bylaws work group review. So what I don't know. In fact, I'm not prepared to go through this item by item today. What I put it in the materials for is for us to look at and be prepared to suggest editing or additional items, phrasing, deletions, whatever may be necessary to be talking points to be submitted to the board of directors. My intention for that to be on the agenda is simply for that to have it before us, to know that we need to go through this and come up with some editing of it. And that I think it's probably going to be sufficient that we hold for the next meeting. If we can't, if the board meeting is going to require us to submit talking points before our next meeting, I think it's entirely appropriate. We can do that. We can do that offline, exchange comments if it becomes necessary. I just want us to all know that we have to have talking points prepared for a board meeting in the future, and this could be used as the starting point edit to be able to do that. But that's the Steve, to answer your question in particular, that's the red and agenda discussion item for the overall participation of association members. That's what this item on the agenda as well as on the status is.
Right, I'm with you.
Okay, is everybody comfortable with just having this before us to look at and be prepared either at the next meeting, or if there's some kind of a advance in board meetings and delay in our meeting, we can do an exchange offline. Is everybody comfortable with that?
Sure.
Okay.
No problem.
All right.
Great.
Well, let's go back again to the status. We've got our assignments for excuse me, for the putting our proposals in a format that we're going to submit to the board of directors. Everybody comfortable with where we are on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I will be, well, let's go now to the next meeting. I'm going to skip over, well, the next meeting actually is the next item on the agenda, excuse me. We need to keep working on these. So we observed, I think, earlier in our meeting that time is continuing on, so I'm going to stop for us. I would like to propose we have another Microsoft meeting 2 weeks from today. Does anybody,
Works for me.
any discussions on that?
That's the 19th.
Would be 17th.
I haven't flipped the calendar yet.
17th.
I can do the 17th.
Yeah, 17th.
Yep, 17th.
Okay, I think we have Bob, Keith, and Steve. Laura, did I hear you
Yep,
somewhere?
I'm just checking. I can do it.
Okay. Colette's has got her mic muted.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I'm good for that day and same
All right.
time, 1 p.m.
Yeah, 1 p.m. Friday, 2 weeks from today, the 17th. Josh, can you send out the
Yep, already in the
meeting?
process.
Okay. All right, let's.
Jim, if
All right,
in the interim, anything that any of us put together from the spreadsheet, we can just distribute as we go along, correct?
Yeah. When you got something, send it out.
Send it out, right? Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
And then Jim, I've kind of lost track of where we were with that eligibility to vote. You guys addressed that, but what we're left with also is whether we want to make some revisions to eligibility to be a candidate that include things like, not being a convicted felon or not, being some other kind of detrimental individual.
Okay.
The things that Keith sent out, those a review of those documents and discussion of those. Do you want me to send you a charging document
Yeah,
to
I think that
discuss
should
that?
I think that should be a charging document. 'Cause
Okay,
the
I'll
work-
do that then. I'll get that out to you for consideration for your next meeting. That's all
Okay,
right.
that's
And
good.
then those documents that Keith sent are really great. So I will not send those to the board at this point. I'll wait for you guys to kind of synthesize the best of, what you glean from all of that discussion.
Okay.
Sound good? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, not the charge, but what we got from the work group dealt not solely, but specifically with that 35-day provision.
Right,
It
yeah.
didn't get into the subject of what you have to be a candidate, let's put it that way.
right.
Candidate qualifications. All right, the remaining two items on the agenda have to do with the first one has to do with the instructions for updating what we call the governance document review. But the governance document review is that spreadsheet that lists all of the resolutions within the book of resolutions, and Bob has prepared, and I don't know, I don't know if I sent this to Josh or not. And I'm pretty sure I got it to all of the committee members.
You did not.
I didn't send it.
Did I include it in the materials to each of the committee members?
I got it in the committee member package.
Okay.
What's the document called?
Definitions and procedures for updating the governance document. That's the governance document is the document that lists all of our resolutions, when they were issued, when they were last revised and reviewed.
I do have that. I have it as a PDF. You said Excel. 1 second. This.
That's it. You got it.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay. Bob and I have pretty much hashed this over numerous times, And I have no further comments. Bob, do you want to make some introductory and
Yeah,
comments to it?
basically I took from the last meeting or the meeting before, since I wasn't at the last meeting, took the input that I received from the committee, went back and made those changes in red. And I mean, in red originally, and then the green I added in. And then Jim made one minor change, which is on the last section, and I renamed it. But basically, I think we've covered all the procedures, starting with the definition. So if we want to go through it quickly, we can, or if anybody has questions on it, I'll be more than happy to answer them. But I think we've covered the entire process for updating it. And since I'm term limited, I wanted to make sure it was documented properly so we could transfer it to somebody else at the end of my term.
Yeah, that's the purpose of having this, is that someone who takes this up next can have something written down, and with whatever in-person transition discussions may be able to be taken place, so that this document, the governance, what we call a governance document, can be consistently maintained. Let's put it that way. And it's been intended to be internal only. In other words, passed from one person to the next as responsibilities on the committee change.
Yeah, I think the biggest change, if you can scroll down a little bit to section B, which is on the second page. Is Josh there? Or?
Yeah, there's just a tape delay.
Okay. Go down pat the next, just down to B. Yeah, it's in the case of committee resolution. That was the change that we talked about at the last meeting, and we incorporated. That is, if we're not getting a response from the committee chair or the committee for updates, the procedure to go through, we will change it if we don't get a response within 30 days. And basically the window becomes almost 60 days by the time we make that change. And we did add the fact that we will look at them. And when we're going to tell a committee a resolution is due for review, if we see any problems with it, we'll mention those problems in the information we forward to them. And then if we see no problems and the committee just doesn't respond, we'll just change the review date to a 1 or a 2 year period, depending what it happens to be. Most of them are 2 years.
Yeah, it's that B that Bob's talking about.
Right. But, and the idea then will be to reduce this down to a small document, 1 page, single page, so we can put the instructions with the governance document, so the instructions remain with it. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, if not, Bob, let's consider this the final. Accept the changes and you'll have the final document.
Yes.
I agree.
I'll reduce it to 1 page and get rid of all the red lines and blue lines and green stuff.
Okay. All right, the final item is the actual review for this meeting. I'm going to apologize. Bob and I are probably the only 2 people who have the current governance document readily available. In the past, it's typically been an attachment to the minutes that we approve of a previous meeting, but that we did not have the document under consideration at that meeting, so it's not in the minutes. I do have the up-to-date, or the most recent one, let's put it that way, document before me. My suggestion is this: there are limited changes to the status. Mostly they are situations in which, excuse me, the board has approved some resolution amendments, but they're not yet fully signed and posted on the website. And that kind of a status can be reflected. I don't think we want to change the reviewed and next review date until they do appear in the online book of resolutions. And that kind of thing, I think Bob and I, by email, we could go back and forth on updating that kind of thing in the current or most recent governance document. There are 3 items that actually is the 4. 2, 3 pertain to Colette. I may have miscommunication somewhere. That's entirely possible. But we're still carrying outstanding a review of the B07 petitions resolution. And that's the one that's actually a board responsibility because it's board policy, board action, or more properly board policy as to how petitions are supposed to be handled. That's been held off for review for the period of time in which there was litigation going on with regard to the referendum that took place, I guess 6 months or so ago now. We need some feedback from the board as to whether it wants to, because of the way petitions were handled in that particular circumstance, is there a need to revise that resolution? And the same goes for M05 and M07, which are respectively the animal control resolution, and M07 is the bulkheads and waterway maintenance resolution. Again, those are both set board policy or board direction, and we need some feedback from the board as to whether the provisions in those resolutions are okay. Now on the
Yeah, Jim, the question I have, I think that's great, and we will do that. But I was looking at the document that Bob was referencing earlier about the process. The question I had in my mind is, does every resolution have a committee identified as responsible for reviewing it? It sounds like the M resolutions and even the B resolutions are really, the board would be responsible for reviewing those.
Okay, many of
Is
the
that
M
correct?
resolutions are, as well as all of the B resolutions.
And so in your experience, has that review happened on the time frame that is expected? Or is
in
that
many-
something the board needs to put on their tickler list?
Well, what we normally do is we make an advisory out to, and in fact, I'm sure I did. I could go back in my emails sometime, but the B07, the petition one, I know it goes back an extended period of time, as well as M05 and M07. I've previously requested them.
You requested those of the board. I remember the petition one.
Well,
And so
it-
your committee has just taken it upon themselves to be responsible for reminding us that we need to look at these.
Yes, that's correct. It's our,
And is that how you want that to remain, or is that something that should be on the shoulders of the president of the association?
well, what the instructions are that Bob drafted call for this committee to, when the review date comes up, the governor's document has a scheduled review date for each of the resolutions, and it's set at 1 or 2 years, depending on the resolution. It's our responsibility to send out a reminder, and if we know of, before we send out that, we should look at the resolution ourselves and to see if we have any awareness of something that is happening or has happened that may need to be addressed in the resolution. But it is our responsibility to send out a review, to send out a notice, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks.
Okay, the one other item that I want to briefly address, and as I said, I think Bob and I can offline do an effective review or update where update is necessary, and they're not significant updates. There are not now current notices that need to be sent out. Let's put it that way. Has to do with resolution M08. This is a resolution about manuals within the association, and I personally have had this on my list of responsibilities to address for some period of time. Not right now, but I will between now and the next meeting prepare a recommendation for the committee to consider. I can't make this kind of a decision on my own. This is a committee decision. A recommendation that resolution be canceled. I'm not going to try to go into the reasons why, but it's a resolution that's been on the books for years now. Good idea, perhaps, but a difficult resolution to make anything really effective about it. And between now, and I intend to get it done between now and the next meeting, whenever, well, we've already scheduled that. I will send to the committee my proposal to have that resolution canceled. Again, without going over a long, sad story, I've had this as a personal consideration that needs to be gone one way or the other, and I'm going to go with a proposal to cancel it. But again, it's a committee decision. Decision would go, if that's the committee decision, it would go to the liaison for the liaison to take to the board. That pretty well wraps up our governance document review. Bob and I, as I said, can consider the relatively minor changes to the current status and have that sent around appropriately after we get that finished. That reaches the end of the agenda, unless somebody has some more that they want to add to it.
No, I just want to remind you, Jim, to send me the documents you're talking about.
Okay, I will do that quickly.
So it looks like, Jim, that you guys are pretty close to being able to send something to the board to then take the next step of sending bylaws revision recommendations to council within the next month or two?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, all right. And then I'll get that charging document to you. And I think what I'm just going to ask about this definition of kind of eligible to serve on the board or be a candidate. I think if you guys review those documents that Keith sent out and discuss those characteristics and come back to us with some recommendations, then we can take it from there. So I'll put that in the charging document. So it's clear what I want or what we want. So, okay.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Well, we pretty well close to our scheduled 2 hours that we try to aim for, and we're pretty close to on schedule. Okay, folks, have a good weekend. If I don't see you sooner, it'll be 2 weeks from now.
All right.
Okay, thank you guys for your hard work on this.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.